All right, so welcome to the deep dive. You know how this works. You share your sources, and we try to extract the most fascinating insights. And, well, the sources this time are, let's just say they're pretty unexpected.
Sounds intriguing.
Yeah, we're going to be diving into female sexuality and relationships,
Okay.
but we're going to be looking at it through the lens of YouTube videos, a Nike shoe product page, and even a resume.
Wow, that's quite the combination of sources.
It is. It really is. So, like, what does a video on male edging techniques have to do with a pair of flashy Nike Air Jordans? Or, like, how does someone's work experience, who designs for a company called Carbonated Thoughts, tie into female arousal?
Yeah, I mean, it is fascinating how these sources can come together, despite their differences. And I think what we're seeing here is that they all kind of point to the idea that inner qualities are super important when it comes to attraction and relationships.
That's true. That's true. There are a lot of recurring themes in the videos, and the idea that who you are matters way more than any techniques or tricks kept coming up.
Yeah.
And there's this woman, Katusha, who seems to be a recurring voice in these videos. She really emphasizes freedom, power, and shadow integration for men who want to attract and satisfy women.
Yeah, and I think it's worth looking at those qualities a little more in depth, especially since you're interested in exploring female sexuality and relationships. And while she is approaching it from the male perspective, I think it's interesting to see how these concepts apply to anyone, regardless of gender.
Okay, so let's break down those qualities a little more.
Yeah.
When Katusha talks about freedom, what does she actually mean? It's not just about being able to do whatever you want, is it?
Right. It's more about inner freedom, freedom from needing external validation, freedom from those limiting beliefs, freedom from the pressure to perform. Like, imagine someone who is just comfortable in their own skin. Someone who's not trying to be anyone other than themselves. That kind of inner peace can be really attractive because it allows for a genuine connection and presence.
So it's like instead of trying to impress someone with some fancy car or like a big bank account, you're drawing them in with your authentic self, your confidence, and your inner peace.
Exactly.
That makes a lot of sense. And what about this power she talks about? Does she mean like dominance or control?
No, not at all. It's not about that. The kind of power that Katusha's talking about is rooted in self-awareness and authenticity. It's about owning your strengths and weaknesses, your desires and vulnerabilities. It translates into a confidence that's not arrogant, but grounded, a genuine expression of who you are, and that can be super magnetic.
I can see how that would be appealing. It's like owning your unique essence, not trying to fit into a mold or live up to someone else's expectations.
Yeah.
Now, this concept of shadow integration might be a bit more complex, but it sounds pretty important too.
It is. And Katusha believes that we all have these hidden parts of ourselves, unresolved traumas or suppressed emotions that we tend to bury. But her argument is that these unintegrated aspects can manifest in unhealthy ways, including in our sex lives.
She even mentions Jeffrey Epstein as like an example of someone whose unintegrated shadow had devastating consequences.
Right, and it's a pretty stark illustration of her point. And, while she's primarily addressing men in these videos, I think shadow integration is relevant for everyone, Addressing past traumas, working through emotional baggage, and integrating those experiences into our present lives, that's essential for anyone who wants to experience true intimacy and fulfillment, both within themselves and in their relationships.
Like you can't run away from your past.
Yeah.
You can only embrace it and integrate it into who you are today.
Yeah.
And maybe that process of self-discovery and healing makes us more attracted to others. It's like, hey, I've been through some stuff, I've worked on myself, and now I'm ready for a genuine connection.
Exactly. And that's what makes those qualities so compelling, whether you're a man or a woman. They speak to a depth and self-awareness that goes beyond just superficial attraction. It's about connecting on like a soul level, recognizing and appreciating the complexities within each other.
So it's not about like playing games or manipulating someone into liking you. It's about showing up as your authentic self with all your baggage and your brilliance. Have you found that to be true in your own life?
Absolutely. I mean, when I think about the people I've been drawn to, it's not about them trying to fit into some box or conforming to society's expectations of attractiveness. It's those intangible qualities, the way someone carries themselves, the energy, they radiate the depth of their self-awareness. Those are the things that really captivate and draw us in regardless of gender.
I completely agree. So we've talked about those inner qualities that Katusha emphasizes, but what about female arousal itself? I mean, you mentioned these sources delve into that as well, right?
They do. One of the videos dives into the topic of squirting and even gets into the scientific debate around it and female ejaculation. There's this description of arcs of fluid gushing across the room.
Okay, that definitely caught my attention. But what I found interesting is that the video goes beyond the mechanics of squirting
Yep.
and emphasizes the importance of context. It's not just about hitting the right spot. It's about a woman's mental and emotional state, feeling safe and connected with her partner.
Right. And it raises an interesting question. Do you think this focus on achieving specific outcomes like squirting sometimes overshadows other aspects of female pleasure and intimacy?
That's a really good question. It's
Yeah.
like we're so focused on reaching a specific destination that we forget to enjoy the journey itself.
Yeah. And it makes you wonder, are we so caught up in the performance aspect of sex trying to hit all the right notes that we kind of forget to just be present and enjoy like the symphony of sensations?
Oh, that's such a good analogy. And it reminds me of something Katusha said in another one of the videos. She said, it's not about what you do in bed, but who you are in bed. It's about bringing those inner qualities like freedom, power, and shadow integration into the sexual experience.
Right. Have you ever been with someone who, like, they were technically skilled in bed, but there was just, like, no genuine connection, no spark of authenticity? It's just not the same.
It's like going through the motions without feeling the music. And, when she talks about women's attraction being more context dependent than men's, it makes me think that context is all about feeling safe, seen, and cherished for who you truly are.
I think you're right. It goes deeper than just physical attraction. It's about that deep sense of connection and understanding.
Right, and that's where this idea of pursuit comes in. Now, I know that word can have some loaded connotations, but I'm curious to hear how Katusha spins it. She seems to think that men need to maintain a certain level of pursuit in order to keep the flame of desire burning.
Yeah, she does. And it's important to clarify what she means by pursuit. She's not talking about like relentlessly chasing or pressuring someone into something they don't want. It's more about staying engaged, curious, and attentive to your partner's needs and desires. It's about continuing to woo them, even after you've been together for years.
So it's not about playing hard to get or manipulating someone. It's about consistently showing up and nurturing the connection.
Exactly. And when we feel pursued, not in a creepy way or anything, but in a way that makes us feel special and desired, it tends to like fan the flames of attraction.
Makes sense. And, it goes both ways, right? It's not just men pursuing women. It's about both partners actively nurturing the relationship and keeping that spark alive.
Definitely. It's a dance, a delicate balance of giving and receiving, pursuing and being pursued. And I think this applies to our relationship with ourselves too. Those qualities we discussed earlier, freedom, power, shadow integration, they're not static traits. They require ongoing effort and nurturing.
So it's like, just as a relationship needs tending, so does our own inner landscape. We need to keep showing up for ourselves, keep exploring, keep growing.
Exactly. And perhaps the pursuit of self-awareness and personal growth is what makes us truly attractive to others.
It's like that saying, you can't pour from an empty cup. You have to fill yourself up first before you can really connect with someone else. And I love how you're tying this back to the Nike shoe listing. It's not just about the shoes. It's about the confidence and presence that comes with embracing who you are.
It's about owning your unique style, expressing yourself authentically, and stepping into the world with confidence.
Speaking of journeys, we can't ignore the fact that relationships like life have their ups and downs. Heartbreak is a universal experience, and it seems like you included a source specifically on healing after a breakup.
I did, and Katusha, as always, offers some unconventional advice. She encourages fully embracing the grieving process, making the present moment your friend, and accepting the situation, however painful it may be.
Yeah, I remember her suggesting some unusual coping mechanisms, like wearing your ex's clothes and mentally killing them to process anger. Now, I don't know if I'd personally recommend those methods, but I can see how they could be helpful for some people.
It's definitely not your typical relationship advice. And she doesn't shy away from getting personal either, sharing her own experiences with heartbreak. Like that story about sleeping with a postcard from an ex-boyfriend for comfort.
It's like she's saying, hey, I've been there, I get it. It sucks, but you'll get through it. And maybe that vulnerability, that willingness to share her own struggles is what makes her advice so relatable.
I think so. It humanizes her and makes her seem less like an expert dictating rules and more like a friend offering support.
Exactly. So we've covered a lot of ground here: inner qualities, female arousal, the importance of context and pursuit, even navigating heartbreak.
Yeah.
And yet there are still two sources that feel a bit like outliers: Sean Ryan's resume and that Nike shoe listing. I'm curious to see how we connect those to this bigger picture.
Okay, let's start with Sean Ryan. His resume is quite the journey, He's gone from shipping and logistics to founding an organic pet product company, and he even does freelance design work for a company called Carbonated Thoughts.
That name always makes me chuckle. But, when I think about it, his diverse career path actually ties in nicely with this theme of embracing different aspects of oneself. It's like he's constantly exploring new avenues and expanding his horizons.
And maybe that willingness to experiment, to try new things, to step outside of his comfort zone, that's another aspect of what makes him interesting and attractive.
It's like he's embodying that concept of shadow integration in a way. He's not afraid to explore the different facets of himself, even the ones that might seem unconventional or unexpected. And maybe that's a lesson for all of us, to be open to new experiences, to embrace our complexities, and to allow ourselves to evolve over time.
I like how you're connecting this back to our earlier discussion. It's not about being some finished product. It's about embracing the journey of self-discovery. And that's maybe where the Nike shoe listing comes in.
Okay, I'm intrigued. How do you see that fitting into this tapestry?
Well, think about what those shoes represent. They're bold. They're stylish. They're designed to make a statement. It's about owning your unique style and expressing yourself authentically. And maybe, just maybe, that external expression of confidence can be a reflection of the inner work we've been talking about.
So it's not about the shoes themselves, it's about what they represent. The confidence, the individuality, the willingness to stand out from the crowd.
Exactly. And that confidence, that self-assuredness, it can be incredibly attractive, whether it's through your fashion choices, your career path, or just the way you carry yourself in the world. It's about owning your power and shining your unique light.
It's like those shoes are a metaphor for stepping into your authentic self and embracing all that you are.
Beautifully put. And it's fascinating how all these seemingly random sources, the videos on edging and squirting, the Nike shoe listing Sean Ryan's resume, they all start to weave together this tapestry of the human experience. You know, it's about exploring our desires, navigating relationships, and ultimately embracing the messy, beautiful complexities of who we are.
It's like we're piecing together a puzzle, and each source is a different piece that contributes to the bigger picture.
And it's a puzzle that doesn't have a single solution or right or wrong answer. It's about the journey of discovery, the exploration of self, and the continuous evolution of our understanding of intimacy, attraction, and connection.
Yeah, and it really makes you think about how these sources highlight that tension that exists between, traditional views on sexuality and a more liberated approach.
Right. There's this kind of underlying current throughout the material, this push and pull between like societal expectations and the desire for individual expression.
Yeah, definitely.
And Katusha even brings up how the halftime show at Super Bowl 2020 caused a lot of controversy, with some people praising it as a celebration of female empowerment and others criticizing it as being overly sexualized.
Yeah, that's a great example of how our perceptions of what's acceptable can vary so widely. What might be empowering to one person could be offensive to another. And it reminds us that everyone approaches these conversations with different backgrounds, beliefs, and experiences. What might be seen as liberating in one culture could be totally taboo in another.
Definitely. And that's where empathy and understanding are so important. It's not about judging or dismissing different perspectives, but about having those respectful conversations and realizing that there's no one-size-fits-all when it comes to sexuality.
It's about honoring individual choices while being mindful of cultural sensitivities. And that makes me think about Katusha's focus on shadow integration. Maybe part of that process is examining our own biases and assumptions about sexuality.
You're right. It's about recognizing those messages we've internalized, those societal norms that have shaped our views, and even the fears or insecurities that could be holding us back from embracing our own sexuality or understanding other people's experiences.
It's like peeling back the layers of an onion.
Right.
Revealing all the complexities and contradictions that make us human. And when Katusha talks about the influence of media and pop culture, it makes you wonder if those external forces contribute to this tension between traditional values and that more liberated approach.
I think they definitely play a role. I mean, we're always being bombarded with images and messages that shape how we view what's considered normal or desirable when it comes to sex. It's important to be a critical consumer of media and question those messages that could be limiting or harmful.
Especially when they're promoting unrealistic expectations or reinforcing negative stereotypes.
Yeah.
It's about figuring out what feels authentic and empowering for you personally, regardless of what you see in movies or magazines.
Exactly. And that's where the power of self-awareness and shadow integration is so important. It's about facing those hidden parts of ourselves, those fears, insecurities, and limiting beliefs that might be holding us back from fully embracing our sexuality and expressing ourselves in an authentic way.
So it's not just about understanding female sexuality from like a textbook perspective, but also looking inward and exploring our own desires, fears, and experiences.
It's definitely a personal journey, and there's no right or wrong way to navigate it. But the sources you shared offer some really good insights and tools for those who are willing to dive deep and explore these themes.
It's like we've been given a map but it's up to each individual to chart their own course.
Exactly.
And I think that's a beautiful and empowering message.
It is, and it reminds us that, self-discovery and sexual exploration are ongoing. They're always evolving. And ultimately, it's a celebration of the human experience.
It's about accepting the sometimes messy, sometimes beautiful, and sometimes contradictory nature of our desires, our relationships, and our evolving understanding of ourselves.
And maybe that's the biggest takeaway from all of this. It's not about finding all the answers or following a set of rules. It's about being open and honest in our exploration, both within ourselves and with our partners.
It's about being curious, compassionate, and ready to challenge our own assumptions. And at the end of the day, it's about knowing that we're all in this together, navigating the ups and downs of human connection, trying to build fulfilling and meaningful relationships.
I couldn't have said it better myself.
Yeah.
So as we wrap up this deep dive, what stands out to you as the most valuable insight you've gained?
What really resonates with me is the emphasis on authenticity and self-awareness. It's not about trying to fit in or live up to other people's expectations. It's about embracing who you truly are, owning your desires, and being vulnerable and honest in your relationships.
That's so true. And it's a great reminder that the most powerful aphrodisiac is often our own self-acceptance and self-love. When we embrace who we are, flaws, and all we naturally draw others to us.
It's like we become a beacon of realness in a world that can feel so superficial. And maybe that's the key to creating those deep and lasting connections. So if there's just one thing you hope our listeners take away from this, what would it be?
I encourage them to keep exploring these ideas with curiosity and an open mind, to question the messages they've been told, to challenge their own assumptions and embrace their journey of self-discovery and sexual exploration. It's a lifelong adventure. And the things we've talked about today are really just the beginning.
It's like we've given them a flashlight to light up their own path. Now it's their turn to explore, to discover what really speaks to them, and to make their own map for navigating relationships.
And remember, it's not about reaching some final destination. It's about embracing the growth, the evolution, and the continuous unfolding of who we are.
Well said. That brings us to the end of this deep dive. We hope you've enjoyed exploring these fascinating and sometimes unexpected sources with us. Until next time, keep diving deep.